here in the U.S. in the summer over food, and then globally throughout the rest of the year, that hyperinflation around food and necessary supplies will continue. If it gets to the point where the dollar death manifests in November, December, as opposed to the March, April period of next year, we have two separate bubbles of linguistics that are pointing to either two separate episodes, two steps down, or I'm misinterpreting one as opposed to the other. And we'll get the effect in March or April of next year. But it does really seem to be November-based, I think. And that's going to be the really nasty time from then on. As the dollar dies, we can expect pressures put on food supplies for lots of people, starvation, not just in the developed world, but significantly in the undeveloped world where people live on $2 a day or less, because the dollar will be devalued. The reserve currency effects will be that if they had any kind of income in dollars, it will make them instant paupers. And that's not a good thing for social stability. Right.
Now, in last January, we were talking about the government going bankrupt around May or June.
That's going to start. We're seeing that process right now, actually. It's kind of a stealth way. I have personal examples of that with relatives with 20-plus years in the county being laid off here in Western Washington. And, they're senior employees with the county, and they're being laid off. There's no expectation that they'll be able to be hired back in the near term at least. So we're talking 4 or 5 years minimum. And the way they're doing this is that they're lopping off whole programs. So, for instance, the WIC program in Washington State is going away. All these various social programs are just being cut. And so the government is hacking off bits and pieces of it to try and keep the torso alive.
That's a great description.
And pretty soon we'll see this effect at the federal level in a staggering way. Because bear in mind that the Obama administration came in with the promise of making things better by creating jobs through stimulus. Stimulus equaling hyperinflation, basically. But the jobs that they're creating are in an illusionary world that no longer exists. Because they're trying to create blue-collar jobs recreating our infrastructure. Well, any blue-collar jobs that are being created are going to illegals. So it's going to miss the American populace per se, yet the hyperinflation won't. So we're going to get this strange dichotomy, so to speak, and it'll cause a real problem for the Obama administration. It appears from about July 15th onward, and then we get this big bump in as I say, October 26th through December, really. It appears that there's going to be some kind of an international crisis around the dollar and in the American empire in October. That will manifest in November around the 5th and thereafter, and it will lead to weird conditions all through 2010. Those weird conditions, I think, if we're reading this correctly, will include almost an emergency reaction on the part of the federal government to close down military bases globally and to try and get people back.
Well, that's interesting.
And apparently there's really nothing that can be done to fix this anyway. So all they have to do is just kind of pretend like they're doing something that's an illusion to just make people think they're trying to do something, right?
That's correct, because basically here's the thing that we've discovered since the Chinese first invented paper currency in this go-round of incarnation here about 6,000 years ago. The thing that keeps the paper currency going is confidence. Once confidence is lost, presuming it's not a gold certificate, 100% redeemable, etc., which is our case, and once confidence is lost, it's impossible to restore. And so usually you have to create a whole new currency, and before you can do that, you usually have to wait for 2 generations to pass before people will buy it again. So we're in a situation where the only weapons they have to prop up a system are those things that the system used to provide them, but the system is now broke, and it's broken in such a way that it's irreparable. So in other words, as of October, the big thing that we had here was in Half Past Human was that we had this date of October 7th, and that really is a demarcation line that will come to be understood 2 or 3 or 4 years from now. That everything that existed prior to October 7th will not be recoverable relative to the economic system. That was the point at which it became clear that the economic system was failing at a complex system level, and that what will take its place will be nothing at all like what we've got now. And so everything they're doing in the administration at the federal level, I'm simply ignoring. Same thing is true of the state, because they're attempting to try and recover a system that is so awash with greed and corruption that it's rotted out from the inside.
Mm-hmm. Now, also last January, you mentioned that the powers that be were, having issues with this economic situation, that the rise in the fear language was increasing. Do you have any more update on?
Yeah, that's really taken off. We're seeing a separation, though, and actually it's very interesting because it clearly defines the powers that be at the management level from the minion level, because the minions are losing it with the bespoke fear language everywhere and are going to start going into hiding mode as rapidly as they can. And the reason that they're doing so is because, remember now, one of the things that was triggering that language was the reaction from the populace, where we were seeing they were going to start becoming a little irritated and start acting out. And we're seeing those actually manifest. Bus tours to the CEO's houses, let's all go throw bricks and this kind of thing. And you heard what happened in the pie demonstration in London with the G20. They went to the head of the Scottish, the Royal Bank of Scotland, and smashed the windows on his car and on his 18th century mansion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the start of it, and and now we're starting to see them actually take steps to camouflage themselves, to disguise. They told everybody, don't dress up when you're coming into the city during the G20 meeting here, because you'll be a target. This kind of thing. Try and blend into the background and disappear. And they're using a lot of our weird disappearance words that we'd seen before. Now we're also seeing, by the way, conditions lead to the gathering of bodyguards around these individuals. And that was something that we'd also forecast as being about this time. So I'm very much anticipating May, because May 14th is a demarcation line that really starts bringing us into the summer of hell.
Mm.
That's interesting, because we really don't know. They're not, the names we know aren't really the ones that are in the top control, right?
Exactly. Obama's security rating is 27 steps below the absolute.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the president. So, I want to know who's, so he's got 27 layers of people above him that know more.
Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that have all the resources already pulled out from the level of the people, and they're set.
Sure. We actually have reports of, $2 trillion a year going missing from 1999 through 2001 through the Department of Defense budget. And they were stashing this money away because they knew this was coming.
Yeah.
And we're seeing huge amounts of the money disappear from the TARP and all the other weird little things now, and it's like, this is very curious. Actually, it points to a very dire situation relative to 2012, because the actions, there's this thing in Latin debate called SCED. It was actually SCED, but it means examine the greater picture in order to determine the meaning of what's going on. In other words, don't take things at face value. And if you go and examine what's going on with the actions of these people that are even blatantly told to you that, oh no, we're not even ever going to account for this $2 trillion, go and, play in the puddle there, kid, kind of language from the Fed, you see that there's something going on in the background. And that something going on in the background is funneling off all kinds of resources. And then you start looking at, well, I like to follow cement. Where's cement going? Because cement is a very high cost, high energy product. It's a basic product of our civilization. And you see that there are vast quantities of cement going north, vast quantities of cement going to the high altitudes, and this kind of thing. And you start following resources, and you see that there's a concerted effort on that is accelerating, and accelerating at a very fast rate. The rate of acceleration itself is increasing, and I think that it's coinciding with the sucking off of all this money, because they know that this is the last gasp.
Right. They're hunkering down.
Yeah.
Or preparing to hunker down.
And that gets back to the undeniability. The weather is going to be so bad that I urge people that have gardens to take efforts to protect them, because you may find that we get in north of 40 here. We're at 47 point something, 22, I think, degree latitude. And it may be that we get snow in June and July. That we get we've had
It's been weird already.
It's quite strange. We've had snow every day for my particular location. We've had snow every week, since early part of December. This never happened and I've lived here since '69.
Right.
And it's hot one day, and when you get out there, the actinic rays are going to scorch you in a minute or two, and yet the next day, chemtrails aside, it's miserably cold, and it's like an October storm.
Right.
Well, this kind of thing is going to continue in such a way that people won't be able to deny interplanetary climate change this year. So it's not only going to hit us really bad, but we'll also see examples of it on other planets at a level that everybody's just going to say, whoa, what's going on? And that's going to cause other problems for the powers that be because they don't want that paradigm to break. That, oh yeah, we can protect you. You know, it's the same kind of logic behind the idea of denying the existence of UFOs. If they ever acknowledge them, then they have to acknowledge that, yeah, we can't do a damn thing and they can come and suck you up off the ground. And it's like, you know, why pay your taxes to the U.S. Air Force if they can't protect you from an abduction, right?
Right. Plus, taking away any possibility of people just even holding the concept that it's not enemies. Well, it's not all enemies out there.
Correct. And that actually brings back to the crop circle idea. Because, you know, the curious thing about real crop circles is that the military gets an attitude about people looking at them and investigating them.
Yes.
I wonder why. I wonder if those guys have been spinning those things and they don't want us to.
That's exactly what we need to be aware of. What is it that they're diverting us from? What is it that they're saying, oh, this isn't important? Those are the things we have to really focus on.
Well, it's actually quite tragic because if you look at a huge picture, you come all the way back to the bizarre instance of stannous fluoride, a poison, a rat poison, that from Germany's use onward, they've attempted to introduce it in many different forms continuously into the U.S. populace. And its one negative is that it calcifies the pineal gland, which of course goes to the third eye, which of course goes back to the idea that if you do this exercise in the Hui Ming Ching and you spin things correctly and you understand what I'm saying about clockwise versus anti-clockwise, and you're able to grab the differential, you can actually feel your third eye start to open. Yes. I mean, physically. It's really spooky. The time it happened to me, I had to just stop instantly because I was just so thunderstruck.
Ooh.
Yeah, now I got to go back and recover that, but that's another story entirely.
Okay.
Okay.
You are just something else, Clif. We don't know what, but it's something else.
Well, half-past human. I don't lie.
And that is halfpasthuman.com. So you can go and get his full reports, and then you won't say, well, wait a minute, I want to know more about this. Why does the hour have to end?
Well, also, let's point him to George, because George is going to release a public summary.
Okay.
So urbansurvival.com, sometime in the next few weeks, he's going to release his understanding of our timeline that he's extracted from our work.
Fabulous. And you'll hear him this month here, too. So
there you go. Quiz him about it.
Thanks a lot, Clif.
Okay, anytime, and let's get those crop circle things going. I want that program, guys.
Okay, we'll do it.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Bye.
thanks for listening.